hands have been shaken. The moves are beginning to be made. Tanya, this is the encounter we are waiting for. Nodirbek, he opens up with the queen's pawn. D4 it is.
We are off Yamanka. Round 4 of the Tata Steel Chess is underway, and I am excited to jump into all the opening action. Nodirbek starting with the queen's pawn opening, the way you're responding with bringing the knight out. We see the fans there. We spot Fiona. We see you, Fiona, right there, taking her awesome photos with awesome interviews to follow later on. Early stages. What do you say we do a quick roundup and take a look at what the players have started with? We'll jump into that action as well, because I just spotted that it was a fascinating Grossolimo. Well, I say fascinating but not really mean it, because we want the open Sicilian, we want the action, but we saw Fabi going for a more solid approach against Anish's Sicilian. Let's jump first into this one. Well, so to say, our marquee matchup between the tournament leader Nodirbek Abdusattorov versus the defending champion Behi. And to me, it's really interesting, right? Because whatever we do know about Nodirbek, I'm pretty sure he hasn't forgotten, Yamanka, what happened last year at Tata Steel. For him, this is also a grudge match.
Yeah, it is. It's certainly, big chess players, they have long memories. They don't like to leave the imprint on a negative score. So maybe we rewind and see the first few opening moves, because, well, we saw the queen's pawn begin, and we meeting that with knight f6, c4 occurs, e6, and then an opening that we call the Nimzo Indian. So the whole point of the bishop coming out to b4 is to prevent white from expanding in the center with the pawn move e2, e4.
Absolutely, and once the bishop arrives here, that's when we call it the Nimzo Indian, and we see Nodirbek immediately asking questions. And this isn't the most popular move, a3, but it's also a very challenging one, because it's not standard theory. It also depends on how much black has prepared, how comfortable you are after a3. Where he uses this opportunity, he gives up the bishop pair, but in return also spoils white's pawn formation. And this is an interesting moment, because this last move now, f3, is where it goes into the Samish variation of the Nimzo Indian. The idea of f3 is to expand in the center. You've destroyed your pawn formation, but you want to get a lot of play in the center, eyeing eventually black's king side.
Yes, and it's a really sharp variation, Tanya. You know, I know it was very popular with the Indian youngsters a while back, and they were getting really dangerous positions. And the reason why it is so tricky is because white's plan is to ignore the pawn on c4 and instead just play against the black king. And there we see the knight coming out to a5. So one of the traditional plans of the Nimzo Indian is just simply to harass the pawn on c4. You want to attack it with the bishop on a6, and you also just want to complete your development and have a very flexible pawn structure, d6 and e6. And you're going to break with c5 at the right time. And what white does with this particular pawn structure, taking the control of the center, is often just to ignore this pawn on c4. It just kind of say it's forgotten and focus on kingside play.
Really nicely broken down, and it really becomes a sort of a battle where you can divide the board in half, right? For black, you focus on the queen side, trying to quickly get to that. evaluation bar doesn't judge. It might as well be the best move in the position. You're connecting your two rooks. You're also always threatening the knight to jump back to b7, eyeing the d6 pawn.
Yeah. And, well, the thing is here is what's White's plan?
I would really like to bring my knight to e4, the center of the board, and also defend this pawn. I want to jump in with my knight to g5, start threatening a checkmate in 1. I need to look for counterplay as White here.
Yeah, you absolutely do. One of the things that you always have to be on the lookout for in this type of structure is whether f5 is something that is going to be problematic.
You could go f5 immediately, and that looks like a very strong move. You could also think about just playing something simple like h6, bring the knight back to b7, hit on d6, and then start threatening f5. One thing's clear, Ivanka, that for White, a lot of this play relied upon creating threats against the black king. The attack just doesn't seem to be appearing out of anywhere. You know, White's queen isn't being able to get assistance either after f5, blocking the diagonal, or a simple move like h6 as well. Meanwhile, the d6 weakness, you know, that pawn it's not a happy pawn right now. In fact, it's stopping the activity of the bishop. It's hard to keep it alive for too long. That pawn falls, a3 a weakness, d4 a weakness. This is Wei Yi in driver's seat.
Yeah, it's definitely something that you could see turn. And I just wanted to highlight one other potential idea that Black has to be careful. That's why Black has to also respond very actively. After queen takes bishop, I think queen to d7 is a good enough move, because another plan that White has is to go queen a6. And you're going to combine that with your plan, with the plan of going knight e4, and you just want to tie down. Yeah. In this particular case, you can't do it against queen to d7, but if you don't play queen to d7 and you play some kind of like developing move or h6, some luxury move, then you do give White the time to kind of get their pieces in their ideal points.
Meanwhile, Ivanka, we do have a draw between Nodirbek and Wei Yi.
Yes, it is a draw, which means that if Pragg wins his game, he will take the sole lead. Now, Nodirbek, of course,